Do you feel that knot in your stomach when an opportunity presents itself? That hesitation, that voice whispering, maybe not today, maybe later, that is fear. And here's the secret: fear is not your enemy. Fear is your signal. It's your body's way of telling you something important is at stake. The difference between those who achieve their goals and those who drift through life is simple. They act anyway. They step forward even when their hands tremble, even when their mind screams for caution. You see, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. And here's the remarkable truth. Every time you do something afraid, that fear loses a little of its grip. The first step might feel impossible, but that one step leads to another and another, until suddenly you're moving faster than you ever thought possible. Success is not waiting for fear to vanish. It's moving in spite of it. Imagine what your life would look like if you didn't let hesitation steal your opportunities. Every great achievement, every dream realized, began with someone doing it afraid. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They didn't wait for confidence to arrive. They simply acted. They understood that the cost of inaction is far greater than the risk of failure. So today, I challenge you: take that step, speak that word, make that call, start that project. Do it even if your heart races, even if doubt looms large. Every action you take against fear compounds into momentum. Every brave step shapes your destiny. And when you look back, you'll realize your greatest victories were forged in the moments you acted despite fear. Not because fear disappeared, but because you refused to let it stop you. Fear is a feeling that everyone experiences, from the moment we take our first steps to the moment we face the unknown. It is a part of being human, woven into our very biology. When we encounter uncertainty, when the stakes are high, when we stand at the edge of a new opportunity, fear shows up. It manifests in many ways: hesitation, doubt, anxiety, a tightening in the chest, or a fluttering in the stomach. It whispers caution, telling us to hold back, to wait, to stay safe, to not risk. And this is where most people make their mistake. They interpret the presence of fear as a signal to stop. They think that because fear exists, the path is dangerous, that their hesitation is wisdom, that they are too small, too unprepared, or too uncertain to move forward. The truth is, fear itself is neither good nor bad. It is neutral. It is simply a signal, a natural reaction to situations that challenge us or push us beyond what is familiar. Fear is natural. It is part of life, and it will never fully disappear. What separates those who achieve extraordinary things from those who drift through life is the way they respond to fear. They recognize that fear is normal, but inaction is optional. In other words, just because fear is present does not mean you are required to stand still. Just because your mind is filled with doubts, or your heart races at the thought of the unknown, or your body signals discomfort, does not mean you must retreat. Inaction is a choice. It is a decision to let fear dictate your actions. And it is in those moments of choice that your future is shaped. Every time you choose to act despite fear, you claim a small victory over the natural instinct to freeze. You begin to train yourself to understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of action in the presence of fear. When you pause and reflect, you realize that fear often exaggerates reality. It paints scenarios far worse than what is likely to occur. It imagines failure in vivid colors, magnifies potential embarrassment, and builds mountains out of mollyhills. But the truth is that fear is rarely a reflection of reality. It is a projection of your mind, a warning system designed to protect you, but often overprotecting, often overstating danger. The person who understands this sees fear for what it is, a natural emotion, a signal, a test, but not a command. They act because they understand that the world does not reward hesitation. Life moves forward, opportunities come and go, and waiting for fear to vanish is the surest way to stagnation. Acting despite fear is a habit that can be developed. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even terrifying. Every step into the unknown may trigger a surge of anxiety, and yet each act of bravery creates momentum. The first time you speak up in a meeting despite your fear of judgment, the first time you pitch an idea despite the fear of rejection, the first time you take that leap of faith in your personal or professional life, you feel the discomfort, and then you realize you survived it. You begin to see that fear is not a stopping point. It is a signpost that you are moving in the right direction. Courage is built piece by piece through repeated action. The more you choose to act in spite of fear, the more natural it becomes. The concept that fear is natural but inaction is optional also teaches a profound lesson about personal responsibility. It reminds us that we are the architects of our lives, and we cannot wait for circumstances to be perfect or for fear to disappear. Life does not pause until we feel ready, and success does not knock politely on the door when our comfort zone is undisturbed. It is only when we take initiative, when we make the deliberate choice to move forward, even with fear present, that progress is made. Every moment spent immobilized by fear is a moment lost, a step not taken, a potential unrealized. Understanding this distinction, acknowledging fear, but refusing to let it control your actions, is the key to unlocking growth, achievement, and self-confidence. Fear will continue to appear at every stage of life because every new opportunity brings with it uncertainty. But the person who internalizes that inaction is optional begins to see fear as a companion rather than a captor. They see it as a signal that they are stepping into a space that matters, into territory that is stretching them, into action that could change their life. They learn to pause, acknowledge fear, and then move forward anyway. In doing so, they rewrite the rules of their lives, proving to themselves again and again that fear is not the boss of them. Each courageous step compounds, creating a momentum that makes the next action easier, and the next, and the next, until they find themselves achieving goals that once seemed impossible. Many people make a critical mistake when it comes to courage. They wait for it to appear, believing that one day they will feel confident enough to take the leap, to make the call, to start the project, or to chase the dream. They assume that courage must come first, and only then can action follow. This is a misconception. The truth is that courage is not something you wait for. Courage is something you build through action. Action creates courage. Waiting for courage to magically appear is the trap that keeps most people stuck in the same place, year after year, hoping that someday they will feel ready. The reality is that no one ever feels completely ready. The people who accomplish great things do not have a secret supply of courage hidden in their hearts. They simply act despite fear, uncertainty, or discomfort, and in doing so, they generate the courage that carries them forward. When you take action, even in small ways, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. Courage grows like a muscle. It strengthens each time you move despite doubt. Consider a person who wants to speak publicly. The first time they stand in front of an audience, their heart races, Their palms sweat, and their mind floods with "what if?" questions. But as they begin, the first few words break through the wall of fear, and suddenly they realize they can do it. They feel alive, empowered, and most importantly, courageous. That courage did not exist fully before they acted. It was born in the very moment they took the step. Each action compounds, and with each step, courage becomes more natural, more familiar, more available. Waiting for it beforehand is futile. Creating it requires motion. This principle applies not only to public speaking, but to every area of life. Starting a business, pursuing a promotion, changing careers, or expressing feelings to someone, all of these require courage. And all of them begin the same way, by taking action. When you act first, courage follows. You discover that the fear you felt was never as paralyzing as you imagined, that the challenges were not insurmountable, and that your ability to handle uncertainty is far greater than you assumed. Every successful person, without exception, has learned this principle. They did not wait for perfect confidence. They did not wait for the storm of fear to pass. They acted, and in the act, courage emerged. One of the most important aspects of this principle is that action creates momentum. When you act despite fear, you generate energy that propels you forward. The first step may be small and shaky, but it sets off a chain reaction. The second step feels slightly easier. The third step builds confidence. Soon, you find yourself taking larger actions, tackling bigger challenges, and facing fear with less hesitation. Courage grows exponentially because action feeds it. Sitting and thinking about being brave, imagining what it would be like to act, or waiting for inspiration will never produce the same results. Courage does not come from contemplation, it comes from execution. Another powerful aspect is that action teaches lessons. Every time you move despite fear, you learn something about yourself, about the situation, and about your ability to navigate uncertainty. Even when results are not perfect, the experience itself strengthens courage. You realize that failure is not fatal, rejection is not devastating, and mistakes are not permanent. The knowledge gained through action is what transforms nervousness into confidence and hesitation into boldness. Without action, fear remains a phantom and courage remains dormant. This idea also shifts the focus from internal feelings to external behavior. Most people believe they need to feel courageous before attempting something difficult, but feelings are unreliable. They fluctuate based on mood, circumstances, and perception. Behavior, however, is within your control. By choosing to act, you bypass the need to feel ready. You choose to create the conditions in which courage naturally grows. And over time, you internalize a profound truth: bravery is not a prerequisite for success. Bravery is a byproduct of consistently moving forward, of doing what must be done, even when your heart is uneasy and your mind is uncertain. When you embrace the principle that action creates courage, your life transforms. You no longer wait for permission from yourself to begin. You no longer fall prey to hesitation disguised as preparation. You take the first step, then the next, and each one reinforces the belief that you are capable. You start to understand that courage is not some mythical trait reserved for heroes or the naturally confident. It is available to anyone who chooses to act repeatedly and consistently in the face of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. Action is the spark, and courage is the flame that follows. The comfort zone is a place that feels safe, familiar, and predictable. It is where routines operate smoothly, where risk is minimal, and where life feels manageable. On the surface, it can feel like a good place to be. There are no surprises, no major failures, no unexpected challenges. Yet, the very things that make the comfort zone appealing are the same things that make it dangerous for anyone who desires growth, success, or extraordinary achievement. Staying in the comfort zone may feel easy, but it is the slow lane to mediocrity. It is a quiet trap that lulls people into believing that safety equals progress, when in reality, safety often equals stagnation. Every person has a comfort zone, and it is natural to want to stay within it. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of the unknown all conspire to keep us in familiar patterns. But life does not reward staying safe. Opportunities, advancement, and transformation reside outside the borders of familiarity. The moment you choose to remain within the comfort zone, you limit your potential. You may achieve a level of competence or stability, but you deny yourself the chance to reach excellence, to expand your capabilities, and to experience the full spectrum of life. Excellence is never found where it is safe. It is found where challenge exists, where you are forced to stretch, adapt, and confront your limitations. The comfort zone may feel productive at first because tasks are easier and outcomes are predictable, but over time, it slows your growth. The very repetition and predictability that make you comfortable are the same forces that prevent progress. Skills stagnate, creativity diminishes, and ambition fades. The person who never steps beyond the familiar is like a plant kept in a small pot. Growth is possible, but only to the limits of the container. In contrast, those who push themselves beyond comfort, who face fear, uncertainty, and challenge, expand their potential exponentially. They encounter experiences that teach lessons, refine skills, and build resilience. They discover strengths they did not know they possessed and achieve results that would have been impossible within the safety of the known. One of the most important truths about leaving the comfort zone is that discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the signal that you are growing, that you are moving in the right direction, and that you are engaging with life in a meaningful way. Every breakthrough, every achievement, and every step forward begins with a moment of discomfort. The first time you speak in public, start a business, confront a difficult conversation, or try something entirely new, you feel unease. That unease is not a warning to stop. It is a reminder that growth is happening. The people who succeed understand this and embrace discomfort as part of the process. They do not avoid it. They lean into it, knowing that each uncomfortable experience expands their capacity for achievement and shapes their character. Remaining in the comfort zone also distorts perspective. When life feels easy and safe, it can create the illusion that effort, risk, or change are unnecessary. You begin to believe that mediocrity is acceptable, that minimal effort is enough, and that avoiding challenge is wise. But this is a trap. Life has a way of catching up with those who resist growth. Opportunities are taken by those willing to step out. Challenges are overcome by those willing to face them, and rewards are earned by those willing to risk discomfort for a chance at something greater. The comfort zone lulls people into delaying action, postponing goals, and settling for less than they are capable of achieving. Stepping out of the comfort zone is a deliberate choice. It requires awareness, courage, and commitment. It means recognizing that the life you want, the achievements, the impact, the fulfillment, exists beyond the familiar. It means understanding that waiting for perfect conditions, for absolute confidence, or for fear to disappear is a guarantee of stagnation. The first step may be small, picking up a new skill, starting a conversation, saying yes to a challenge, or taking a risk in your work or personal life. But each step compounds. Every action outside the comfort zone builds confidence, resilience, and momentum. The further you push yourself, the more capable you become, and the more opportunities open up that would have remained invisible if you had stayed safe. Ultimately, living in the comfort zone is a slow surrender to mediocrity. It may feel secure, but it is a silent thief of potential. Every moment spent avoiding discomfort is a moment where growth is postponed. To achieve extraordinary results, to live a life of impact, to discover the depths of your abilities, you must embrace discomfort, challenge yourself, and venture beyond the familiar. The comfort zone is not a resting place, it is a boundary. To move forward, to evolve, and to truly excel, you must cross that boundary again and again, learning to thrive in spaces where uncertainty reigns. Fear is present, and possibility is endless. Fear is often seen as a warning, a signal to stop, retreat, or avoid. From a young age, we are taught to protect ourselves, to avoid danger, and to stay safe. So when fear appears, it naturally triggers hesitation, self-doubt, and even panic. We begin to question our abilities, our choices, and our decisions. We ask ourselves, am I ready? Is this too risky? Should I wait for a safer moment? But here is the truth that most people overlook. The very fear you feel is often the clearest indicator that you are moving in the right direction. It is a sign that you are stepping into growth, stepping toward opportunity, and stepping toward a life that matters. Fear is not always the enemy. It is a compass pointing you toward your potential. When you encounter fear, it usually arises because you are moving beyond what is familiar. It appears when you are about to do something important, something meaningful, or something that could change your life. The fear of speaking publicly, starting a new venture, asking for a raise, pursuing a dream, or taking a stand, all these fears occur precisely because the action matters. If it didn't matter, fear would not be present. Fear is nature's way of highlighting the moments that require courage, the moments where growth is possible, and the moments where your life can shift from ordinary to extraordinary. Understanding this transforms fear from a paralyzing force into a guiding signal. Consider the people who have achieved great things. Every one of them has faced fear, intense, real, and often overwhelming. A successful entrepreneur launching a business, an athlete attempting a new level of performance, a leader making a bold decision. They all feel fear, and yet they move forward. They understand instinctively that fear is not a stop sign, but a signpost. It marks the boundary between comfort and opportunity, between stagnation and progress. Fear often appears right before breakthroughs, right before pivotal moments, and right before the achievement of goals. The presence of fear signals that you are about to stretch yourself in ways that will create lasting impact and growth. The reason fear is such a reliable indicator is because it exists at the edge of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is safe, predictable, and familiar. When you move toward unfamiliar territory, your mind and body react instinctively with fear. This fear, though uncomfortable, confirms that you are stepping into territory that challenges you, teaches you, and shapes you into a stronger version of yourself. Those who ignore this fear, those who dismiss it as irrelevant or insignificant, miss an important opportunity for growth. Conversely, those who acknowledge it, respect it, and move forward despite it, harness its power as a tool for transformation. Fear becomes a guide, not a barrier, when you understand its true purpose. It is also important to recognize that fear is often amplified by imagination rather than reality. Your mind anticipates worst-case scenarios, imagines rejection, and exaggerates consequences. This amplification makes the moment feel more daunting than it truly is. Yet, this is precisely why fear is so aligned with opportunity. If the task were simple, if the risk were insignificant, fear would not exist. The intensity of the fear often reflects the importance of the action. The greater the fear, the greater the potential reward, impact, or transformation. Recognizing this allows you to interpret fear not as a threat, but as confirmation that you are on the path that matters most. Another aspect of this principle is that fear can serve as a measure of your aspirations. When you reach for something significant, something beyond the ordinary, you naturally encounter fear. Fear tests your commitment, resilience, and determination. It challenges you to decide whether you will let it dictate your actions or whether you will act in spite of it. The very act of moving forward in the presence of fear strengthens your courage, your confidence, and your ability to pursue bigger goals in the future. Each time you step past fear, you expand your limits, proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagine. Fear is also a mirror of opportunity. The discomfort it produces is evidence that the situation matters, that your choices have consequences, and that your actions can lead to meaningful results. Those who avoid fear in search of comfort often find themselves stagnant, achieving little, and living a life that feels safe but unfulfilled. The people who succeed recognize that fear is not a signal to stop, but a signal to prepare, to act, and to embrace the challenge before them. They learn to read fear as a guide rather than a barrier. Understanding that the moments that scare them the most are often the moments that shape them the most, it is easy to underestimate the power of small steps. We often think that in order to achieve something significant, we need grand gestures, sudden breakthroughs, or dramatic changes. We imagine that success arrives in one bold leap or overnight transformation. The truth is far different. The path to extraordinary results is rarely sudden. It is built one step at a time through consistent, deliberate action. Small steps taken repeatedly compound over time into achievements that can feel almost impossible when viewed from the starting point. What may seem insignificant today, the effort you make, the choice you take, the action you perform, can grow into remarkable outcomes when compounded day after day, week after week, and year after year. The principle of compounding is not limited to finance. It exists in every area of life. Learning a new skill, building a business, improving relationships, developing health, or cultivating personal discipline all follow the same pattern. Each small action you take adds to the foundation you are creating for your future. Just as a single seed, when nurtured consistently, grows into a strong tree, so too does repeated effort, no matter how small, accumulate into a powerful result. Often, people fail to recognize the significance of these incremental actions because the results are not immediate. The tree does not grow overnight, the habit does not take root instantly, and the skill does not develop in a single attempt. Yet, if you persist, the small steps begin to create momentum, and before long, the results appear far larger than any one action could have suggested. Consider the process of building knowledge. Reading for 20 minutes each day, taking small notes, and applying what you learn may feel inconsequential in the moment. But over months and years, This simple practice can transform your thinking, expand your perspective, and equip you to handle challenges that once seemed impossible. The same is true for physical fitness. Running a few minutes each day, lifting a little more weight each week, eating slightly better. These incremental improvements build endurance, strength, and vitality over time. What begins as small, almost unnoticeable steps becomes a cumulative force that shapes your life. Success is often invisible at first, hidden in the quiet, consistent actions that others overlook. One of the greatest advantages of small steps is that they reduce fear and overwhelm. When the goal feels massive, when the vision feels distant, the mind often reacts with hesitation, doubt, or procrastination. The enormity of the task can paralyze even the most determined individuals. By breaking the goal into smaller, manageable steps, you neutralize fear and create a clear path forward. Each completed step produces a sense of accomplishment, reinforcing confidence and motivating the next step. This is how momentum is built. Momentum, once established, becomes a powerful force that carries you further than you could imagine, allowing you to tackle challenges that once felt too large, all because you started small and kept moving. The compounding effect of small steps is particularly powerful because it is not linear, it is exponential. A small action today may influence another action tomorrow, which influences the next, and soon, a network of positive results emerges. Relationships improve because you consistently show care. Skills advance because you consistently practice. Opportunities appear because you consistently engage. The chain reaction created by repeated, small efforts is often what differentiates those who achieve extraordinary outcomes from those who remain average. It is not always talent, luck, or genius. It is the discipline to take consistent, purposeful steps over time. Another critical aspect of small steps is that they cultivate habits. Habits are the building blocks of long-term success. When small actions are repeated consistently, they become automatic, embedded into your daily life, and no longer require constant willpower to execute. This is the compounding of behavior. Habits transform small actions into effortless progress, ensuring that the momentum you build is sustainable and continuous. Those who master the power of small steps understand that extraordinary results are not built in a day, but are constructed brick by brick, habit by habit, until the final structure is complete. Small steps also build resilience and adaptability. Each minor success, each tiny improvement, reinforces your confidence and teaches you lessons about persistence, patience, and strategy. When setbacks occur, as they inevitably will, the individual who has practiced consistent small steps has a foundation of experience and confidence to draw upon. They understand that failure does not erase progress, it is simply part of the journey, another step in the compounding process. The more small steps you take, the stronger your foundation becomes and the greater your capacity to handle challenges, adapt to change, and seize opportunities. The principle of small steps is a reminder that greatness is not reserved for the few who can leap extraordinary distances in a single bound. It belongs to those who understand the quiet, persistent power of consistent action. Each small choice, each minor effort, each deliberate step compounds into results far greater than imagined. And in time, those results define the life you have built. Visualization is one of the most powerful tools you can use when pursuing goals. Yet it is often underestimated. Most people focus on obstacles, doubts, or the fear of failure, letting those negative images dominate their thoughts and shape their actions. But the truth is that your mind responds to what you consistently picture, whether positive or negative. When you visualize success beyond fear, you train your mind to see opportunity instead of danger, to see possibility instead of limitation, and to see achievement instead of hesitation. Visualization is not wishful thinking. It is preparation for action. It primes your mind for confidence, fuels your motivation, and strengthens your resolve to act even when fear is present. Fear has a way of distorting reality. When you focus solely on fear, you magnify the risks, exaggerate the challenges, and diminish your belief in your own abilities. The mind becomes trapped in a cycle of doubt, imagining worst-case scenarios and paralyzing you before you even take the first step. Visualization works by breaking this cycle. It shifts your focus from what could go wrong to what could go right. It allows you to see yourself performing successfully, handling challenges with skill and composure, and achieving the outcome you desire. The more vividly you picture success, the more real it becomes in your mind, and the more your mind begins to guide your actions toward making that success tangible. The process of visualizing success goes beyond simply imagining an outcome. It requires you to mentally rehearse the steps, the actions, and the behaviors necessary to achieve your goal. For instance, if you are preparing to give a presentation, visualize yourself speaking confidently, connecting with the audience, and responding to questions with clarity. Picture the environment, the reactions of those around you, and the satisfaction you feel afterward. By doing this, you condition your mind to respond with calmness and assurance rather than panic and doubt. The more you practice this mental rehearsal, the easier it becomes to translate visualization into action in real life. Visualization also strengthens your emotional resilience. Fear is an emotional response, and when it becomes overwhelming, it can sabotage even the most rational plans. By visualizing success beyond fear, you familiarize yourself emotionally with the experience of triumph, so that when fear arises, it no longer dominates your feelings. Your mind has already seen the positive outcome, and your emotions are prepared to support your actions rather than hinder them. This emotional preparation is crucial because courage is often not the absence of fear, but the ability to act effectively despite it. The more vividly you picture success, the more your mind and heart align with the actions required to achieve it. Another critical aspect of visualization is its ability to clarify your goals and intentions. When you imagine yourself achieving a specific outcome, you naturally consider the steps necessary to get there. Visualization turns abstract aspirations into concrete, actionable plans. It forces you to define what success looks like, what obstacles may arise, and how you will overcome them. By doing this in your mind first, you reduce uncertainty and create a roadmap for your actions. Fear still exists, but it is counterbalanced by clarity and purpose. You know where you are going, and your mind is primed to find ways to move forward. Visualization also cultivates belief. Belief is a critical ingredient for success, yet it is easily shaken by fear and doubt. When you repeatedly picture yourself succeeding, you internalize the possibility of achievement. Your subconscious mind begins to accept that success is attainable. And this belief translates into greater confidence, persistence, and resilience. You start to act in ways consistent with the vision you hold, making decisions, taking risks, and embracing challenges that align with your imagined outcome. Visualization bridges the gap between fear and action by creating a mental rehearsal of triumph that guides your real-world behavior. In addition, visualization allows you to focus on what you can control rather than on what might go wrong. Fear often fixates on uncertainty and imagined threats, but by seeing yourself succeed, you shift attention to the actions, strategies, and attitudes within your control. This shift empowers you to act decisively rather than be immobilized by anxiety. You begin to understand that fear does not have to dictate your choices because your mind has already rehearsed how to respond effectively, confidently, and creatively in the face of challenges. Finally, visualizing success beyond fear helps create momentum. Each time you mentally practice achieving your goal despite fear, you build confidence and motivation for the next action. Fear loses its grip because your mind is no longer fixated solely on danger, it is focused on possibility. Over time, this repeated mental training develops courage, clarity, and a sense of inevitability that propels you forward, even in situations that once seemed too intimidating. The act of visualizing success becomes a tool to override fear, a method to build resilience, and a strategy to ensure that fear never stops you from moving toward the life you desire. Failure is a word that carries a heavy weight in our minds. From early childhood, we are often conditioned to fear failure, to associate it with shame, inadequacy, or loss of status. Society, peers, and even our own inner critic often treat failure as something to be avoided at all costs, a judgment on our character or potential. But the truth is that failure is not a verdict on who you are or your capacity to succeed. Failure is feedback. It is information, guidance, and insight. It is a signal that helps you understand what works, what doesn't, and how to adjust your approach to move closer to your goals. Seeing failure as feedback rather than condemnation is one of the most powerful mindsets you can cultivate on the path to achievement. Every person who has ever achieved something significant has faced failure. It is not the absence of failure that defines success, it is how one responds to it. When you fail, your first instinct may be to feel discouraged, frustrated, or even defeated. You might think that the setback means you lack the talent, skill, or capability to reach your goal. But these thoughts are the result of misunderstanding the true nature of failure. Failure is not final. It is a teacher offering lessons that are often invisible until we look closely. Each failure contains clues about what to improve, what to change, and what steps to take next. Those who interpret failure correctly use it as a roadmap for future success. Think of failure as a mirror. When you stumble, it reflects your actions, decisions, and strategies back to you. It does not judge, it simply reveals. Perhaps you underestimated the challenge, lacked sufficient preparation, misread a situation, or overlooked a critical detail. Failure exposes these gaps so that you can correct them. If you treat failure as a verdict, you close the door to growth. If you treat failure as feedback, you open the door to improvement, learning, and greater resilience. In this sense, failure is not something to fear. It is an essential part of the journey toward mastery and achievement. One of the most important lessons in embracing failure as feedback is the mindset shift it creates. When you see setbacks as opportunities to learn, fear of failure diminishes. You are no longer paralyzed by the idea of being wrong or unsuccessful. Instead, you focus on progress, growth, and iteration. Every misstep becomes a stepping stone, each mistake a lesson, and each disappointment a guidepost pointing toward what to do differently next time. This mindset is what allows high achievers to persist where others give up. It transforms fear into fuel and frustration into focus. failure also develops resilience. Every time you experience a setback and continue moving forward, you strengthen your ability to endure challenges. You learn that a single loss does not define your entire journey, that mistakes do not erase your potential, and that perseverance is more powerful than perfection. Resilience is not built in moments of ease, it is forged in moments of struggle. By reframing failure as feedback, you convert painful experiences into growth opportunities, ensuring that setbacks accelerate your development rather than derail it. Another critical aspect of failure as feedback is the clarity it brings. Success can be blinding. When things are going well, it is easy to overlook weaknesses, inefficiencies, or areas that require improvement. Failure shines a light on what needs attention. It helps you identify gaps in knowledge, skills, strategy, or preparation. This clarity allows you to recalibrate your efforts, improve your approach, and ultimately increase your chances of success. Without failure, you may continue to repeat the same mistakes, unaware that a course correction is needed. Feedback, on the other hand, provides actionable insight. Failure also teaches humility and perspective. When you fail, you are reminded that no journey is without obstacles and no success is guaranteed. This awareness fosters patience, gratitude, and a deeper appreciation for achievement when it finally arrives. It also strengthens your empathy and understanding of others who struggle, creating a more grounded and balanced mindset. Those who view failure as feedback are not discouraged by setbacks. They are motivated to refine their methods and keep moving toward their goals. The cumulative effect of embracing failure as feedback is transformative. It changes the way you approach challenges, the way you take risks, and the way you measure progress. You begin to see every outcome as valuable, whether it feels like success or not. You learn to separate your identity from your results, understanding that your worth is not dependent on flawless performance. You develop the courage to try again, the wisdom to adjust, and the persistence to continue moving forward. Each failure becomes a building block, each setback a teacher, and each mistake a step closer to your ultimate achievement. Failure is feedback, not a verdict, and recognizing this distinction is what allows ordinary efforts to compound into extraordinary results. Fear is one of the most universal and powerful emotions human beings experience. It manifests in different ways for everyone: doubt, hesitation, worry, anxiety, or a sense of being stuck. Often, fear convinces us to wait, to hesitate, to avoid action until conditions feel perfect or until confidence appears. But here's a profound truth: waiting for fear to disappear is a trap, because fear rarely vanishes on its own. Fear is not the problem, inaction is. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. The moment you take deliberate action while afraid, fear loses its power over you. Every time you do it afraid, you reclaim control, and the grip that fear holds over your life begins to weaken. Fear has a unique quality: it thrives on avoidance. The more you step back, procrastinate, or wait for certainty, the stronger it becomes. Fear feeds on hesitation, and inaction validates it. But when you act despite fear, you break the cycle. You prove to yourself that fear does not define what you can do. It is a reaction, not a restriction. The act of moving forward in the presence of fear diminishes its intensity because you no longer give it authority over your decisions. Every step taken while afraid sends a clear message to your mind: I am capable, even when I feel uncertain. This repeated practice rewires the brain, gradually transforming fear from a controlling force into a manageable signal. Doing it afraid also reframes the way you see fear. Fear is often interpreted as danger or limitation, a signal that something is risky or unwise. But fear is also a marker of growth and opportunity. The moments that scare you the most are usually the ones that matter the most. They point toward actions that will stretch you, challenge you, and ultimately shape your character. When you act despite fear, you begin to see fear as an indicator of significance rather than an obstacle. Fear becomes a compass pointing you toward the areas where courage is required and progress is possible. Every individual who has achieved great things has felt fear in the moments that mattered most. A public speaker faces trembling hands and racing thoughts, yet steps onto the stage. An entrepreneur fears rejection or failure, yet launches a business. A person seeking personal transformation feels the weight of uncertainty, yet commits to change. These individuals do not wait for fear to disappear, they act despite it. The act of doing it afraid creates momentum, confidence, and a sense of mastery over one's own mind. Each step taken in fear compounds into strength, and each subsequent challenge feels slightly less intimidating because the precedent has been set. Another important aspect of doing it afraid is that it shifts your focus from the fear itself to the action required. Fear can dominate attention, magnifying perceived risks and paralyzing decision-making. But when you focus on the next concrete step, on what must be done, fear becomes secondary. It is still present, but it no longer dictates your behavior. The energy that was once consumed by worry and doubt is redirected into purposeful action. By consistently practicing this, you train yourself to respond with courage, persistence, and clarity, even when anxiety or uncertainty is present. Doing it afraid also builds resilience and self-trust. Each time you move forward despite fear, you accumulate evidence that you can handle discomfort, risk, and uncertainty. You learn that temporary fear does not lead to permanent failure. You discover inner resources, problem-solving abilities, and determination that you may not have realized were there. This repeated experience strengthens your confidence, not in the absence of fear, but in your ability to act effectively in its presence. Over time, fear loses its ability to immobilize you because you have proven again and again that it is not a stopping force. In addition, doing it afraid cultivates a sense of freedom. Fear often limits life by creating invisible barriers. It tells you what you cannot do, where you cannot go, and who you cannot become. But when you act while afraid, you reclaim your power. You step into your potential, unshackled from the invisible chains of hesitation. The world begins to feel larger, possibilities expand, and your capacity to take risks and seize opportunities grows. You learn that fear is not a verdict on your capabilities. It is simply an emotional response that can be managed, challenged, and overcome through action. Ultimately, doing it afraid transforms fear from a paralyzing force into a catalyst for growth. Each time you take action in spite of fear, you weaken its grip, expand your confidence, and move closer to your goals. Courage is strengthened not by waiting for fear to disappear, but by proving that you are bigger than your doubts, that your action is more powerful than your hesitation, and that your potential is greater than your anxiety. Every step taken while afraid compounds into resilience, momentum, and the undeniable realization that fear is only as strong as the authority you give it. Excuses are some of the most subtle and dangerous obstacles in life. On the surface, they appear reasonable, logical, and justified. They often sound like statements of fact. I don't have the time. I'm not ready yet. the conditions aren't right, or I don't have the resources. We tell ourselves these things to make our inaction feel acceptable, to preserve comfort, or to avoid confronting our fears. But behind every excuse is fear. Fear disguised as reason, fear disguised as logic, fear disguised as necessity. Excuses are the mind's way of rationalizing hesitation, delay, and avoidance. And they are the silent killers of ambition, potential, and progress. Every excuse has a story attached to it. We tell ourselves that we need more time, more money, more support, or more confidence before taking action. We wait for circumstances to align perfectly, believing that some future moment will be safe enough or convenient enough to move forward. Yet, the truth is that circumstances rarely align perfectly, and waiting for the perfect moment often becomes a lifetime of procrastination. Excuses allow fear to control us by giving it a disguise. They make hesitation feel responsible, making inaction feel justified, and preventing us from confronting the very fears that are holding us back. Excuses often appeal to logic because they are rooted in what seems rational in the present moment. They convince us that the risk is too high, that failure would be catastrophic, or that effort is wasted. But rationality, when dominated by fear, becomes a prison. The person who listens too closely to excuses will never step beyond the familiar. They will remain confined to a life dictated by limitation, repetition, and comfort. The great achievers, on the other hand, learn to recognize excuses for what they really are: fear dressed up in reason. They understand that excuses are signals, not solutions. They confront the fear behind the excuse and act anyway, transforming hesitation into momentum and doubt into achievement. One of the reasons excuses are so powerful is that they protect us from discomfort. Acting toward a meaningful goal often requires risk, uncertainty, and vulnerability. Fear is naturally drawn to these conditions because it perceives potential harm or failure. Excuses become a protective shield, allowing us to maintain the illusion of safety while avoiding the challenges that stretch us. But growth never happens in comfort, and progress never occurs without risk. By seeing excuses as fear disguised as reason, you begin to strip away the protective veil and face the reality that action is always possible, even when fear is present. Excuses also prevent learning and discovery. When you avoid action because of fear, you rob yourself of experience, insight, and opportunity. The person who blames external circumstances or personal limitations stops exploring solutions, experimenting, and improving. But when you act despite fear, you gain feedback, knowledge, and momentum. You learn what works, what doesn't, and how to adjust. The moment you recognize an excuse as fear, you shift from avoidance to curiosity, from limitation to experimentation, and from hesitation to proactive effort. Excuses may feel comfortable, but they are costly because they stall your growth, diminish your confidence, and delay the achievements that could define your life. The impact of excuses extends beyond immediate goals. They shape identity. When you repeatedly give in to excuses, you begin to internalize them. You start believing that you are someone who cannot take risks, cannot follow through, or cannot overcome challenges. Fear, cloaked as reason, slowly becomes the narrative of your life. But the moment you confront excuses and act despite fear, you rewrite that narrative. You prove to yourself that you are capable, resourceful, and resilient. You create evidence that action is stronger than hesitation, courage stronger than fear, and potential greater than limitation. Breaking free from excuses requires awareness and discipline. First, You must identify when you are using logic or reason as a mask for fear. This takes honesty and reflection because excuses often feel justified in the moment. Second, you must shift your focus from fear to action. Even small steps toward your goal weaken fear's grip. Each action taken, each risk embraced, strips away the power of the excuse, replacing it with momentum, confidence, and progress. Over time, the habit of moving despite excuses rewires your mindset. You no longer wait for safety or certainty. You act because action is the antidote to fear. Ultimately, excuses are fear disguised as reason, and recognizing this truth is critical to achieving goals, pursuing dreams, and living with purpose. When you see through the disguise, you empower yourself to move forward, even in uncertainty, and transform hesitation into decisive action, doubt into confidence, and limitation into possibility. Time is the one resource that is truly equal for everyone, yet it is also the most unforgiving. Every single person has the same 24 hours in a day, and yet how we choose to use them determines the trajectory of our lives. Time waits for no one. It is impartial, relentless, and constant. The clock does not pause because you are uncertain, afraid, or hesitant. Opportunities do not linger indefinitely while you weigh your options or wait for the perfect moment. Each second passes once and never returns. Understanding this principle is critical because the way you respond to time shapes your productivity, growth, and ultimately, your destiny. One of the greatest mistakes people make is to underestimate the value of time. They assume there will always be another day, another chance, another opportunity. They postpone action, thinking that waiting will somehow make circumstances more favorable, or that confidence will arrive on its own. But time is indifferent to excuses, fears, or desires. It moves forward regardless of whether you are ready. Every moment spent hesitating is a moment lost, a step not taken, and a potential unrealized. Those who achieve greatness understand that time is the ultimate currency, and squandering it in hesitation, doubt, or procrastination is the surest way to limit one's life. When you recognize that time waits for no one, you begin to act with urgency and purpose. You start to prioritize what truly matters, focusing on goals and actions that contribute to growth and progress. You understand that there will never be a perfect time to start, no ideal conditions to align, and no guarantee of comfort along the way. The only certainty is the present moment, and the only option is to move forward. This realization shifts your mindset from passive dreaming to active doing. It creates a sense of responsibility and accountability because you understand that the passing hours are not lost. They are opportunities waiting to be seized. Time is also a great equalizer. It does not favor the young or the old, the rich or the poor, the experienced or the inexperienced. Each of us is given the same 24 hours, and how we choose to use them determines the difference between mediocrity and excellence. Those who achieve their goals, build their dreams, and leave a lasting impact are not people with more hours than anyone else. They are people who understand the value of each moment and consistently invest their time in meaningful actions. Conversely, those who let fear, excuses, or distractions dominate their attention often look back and wonder where the time went, realizing too late that it slipped away while they were idle or hesitant. Understanding that time waits for no one also highlights the cost of procrastination. Every delay, every "I'll do it tomorrow," every moment spent avoiding action carries a hidden price. The cost is not only lost opportunities, but also the momentum that could have been built. the skills that could have been developed, and the confidence that could have grown. Success compounds over time, but so does inaction. Delaying action allows others to move ahead while you remain stagnant. The passing hours are a silent teacher, showing that those who act consistently, no matter how small the steps, gain the advantage over those who wait for permission, comfort, or certainty. Time also teaches perspective. When you internalize the reality that it waits for no one, you become more deliberate in your choices. You begin to recognize distractions, habits, and behaviors that waste precious hours and reduce your effectiveness. You learn to say no to things that do not align with your goals, to prioritize actions that matter, and to focus on what contributes to progress. The awareness that time is finite sharpens your decision making, increases productivity, and creates clarity about where to invest energy, attention, and effort. Another powerful lesson about time is that action, consistency, and discipline amplify its value. Just as fear diminishes when confronted and effort compounds when repeated, time becomes a force for achievement when used wisely. Daily habits, small steps, and deliberate effort, repeated consistently over weeks, months, and years, lead to extraordinary results. Those who respect time understand that each day is a building block, each hour a foundation, and each moment an opportunity to advance. Conversely, those who ignore the passage of time, who delay action, and who allow distractions to dominate often find themselves far from where they hope to be. Time is relentless, impartial, and irreversible. It will move forward whether you act or not, whether you prepare or procrastinate, whether you embrace opportunity or avoid it. The person who understands this principle acts decisively, moves with purpose, and refuses to let fear or doubt dictate their actions. They focus on what they can control, the use of their hours, the quality of their decisions, and the consistent pursuit of their goals. By doing so, they harness the unstoppable flow of time to their advantage, transforming each passing moment into progress, growth, and achievement. Courage is not a fixed trait. It is not something you are born with or without. It is not a quality reserved for heroes or the naturally confident. Courage is a skill, a habit, and a muscle that grows stronger the more it is exercised. One of the most powerful truths about courage is that it grows each time you face fear, each time you take action despite uncertainty, and each time you push beyond hesitation. It is not an abstract concept. It is built through experience, through deliberate choice, and through repeated practice. The more you confront fear, the more familiar it becomes, and the more capable you are of acting effectively in its presence. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, the risky, or the challenging. It signals that you are stepping into territory that matters, territory that has the potential to change your life. Many people interpret fear as a stop sign, a signal that they are not ready or that they should retreat. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act, move forward, and remain committed in spite of fear. Every time you choose to step forward when fear is present, you create a precedent. You prove to yourself that fear is not a barrier, but an indicator that you are growing, learning, and moving toward something significant. This cumulative experience strengthens your courage, making it easier to act in future situations. Think of courage like a muscle. When you first encounter fear, your courage may feel weak or fragile. The first step into the unknown may feel intimidating, your heart may race, and your mind may be flooded with doubts. But when you take that step anyway, you begin to build strength. The next time fear appears, you recall the experience of having acted before, and your confidence increases. Over time, courage grows incrementally, reinforced by each act of bravery. Just as physical strength is built through repetition, consistency, and progressive challenge, courage is strengthened by repeatedly confronting fear, by refusing to allow hesitation to dictate action, and by proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagined. The growth of courage is compounded by experience. Each time you face fear and act, you gain valuable insight into your capabilities, your limits, and the realities of the challenges you encounter. You discover that fear is often more intense in anticipation than in reality. You realize that obstacles can be overcome, mistakes can be corrected, and setbacks are not permanent. This knowledge reduces the paralyzing power of fear, replacing it with confidence and composure. Courage, like knowledge, is cumulative. It grows stronger with each encounter, expanding your ability to handle increasingly difficult situations without being immobilized. Another important aspect of courage is its transformative effect on mindset. When you consistently act despite fear, you begin to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities. Fear becomes a signal that you are stretching yourself, learning, and stepping into your potential. The more you embrace fear, the more you reframe it from a source of anxiety into a guidepost for action. Courage grows in this environment because the mind and body are repeatedly trained to respond with confidence rather than hesitation. Each act of bravery reinforces the belief that you are capable of navigating uncertainty, managing risk, and achieving meaningful goals. Courage also multiplies when it is visible to others. Every time you act despite fear, you inspire not only yourself but those around you. Observing someone take decisive action in the face of uncertainty reinforces the understanding that fear is manageable and does not need to dictate behavior. Courage, when practiced, becomes contagious. It encourages others to confront their own fears, take responsibility for their lives, and move forward despite hesitation. In this way, each act of courage contributes to a broader culture of boldness, initiative, and resilience. Facing fear consistently also strengthens perseverance. Courage is not always about dramatic, heroic acts. Often, it is about persistent, small steps taken day after day in situations where fear and doubt are present. It is about showing up, making the call, sending the email, speaking the words, or taking the risk even when the outcome is uncertain. Each of these actions reinforces the capacity to act under pressure, to manage anxiety, and to maintain composure. Over time, courage becomes habitual because the mind and body have been conditioned to respond with action rather than avoidance. Finally, courage grows because action builds self-trust. Every time you step forward despite fear, you create evidence that you can rely on yourself. You prove that your abilities, judgment, and resolve are sufficient to navigate uncertainty and achieve results. This self-trust reduces hesitation in future situations, increases confidence in decision-making, and strengthens resilience in the face of setbacks. The more evidence you accumulate of your own capability, the more courage becomes a natural response, not a rare occurrence. Courage grows each time you face fear, and this growth is compounding. Each act reinforces the next, building a reservoir of strength, confidence, and resilience that allows you to tackle greater challenges, pursue higher goals, and live a life defined by boldness rather than hesitation. Momentum is one of the most underestimated forces in personal growth and achievement. It is not flashy, nor is it always immediately noticeable, But once it is established, it becomes an unstoppable force that carries you toward your goals. Momentum is not something that happens by accident. It is the result of consistent, deliberate action. Each step, no matter how small, adds to the momentum that propels you forward. The challenge many face is that they wait for motivation, inspiration, or perfect circumstances to begin. Yet momentum does not come first. It is built through movement, repetition, and persistence. Action creates momentum, and momentum transforms effort into results. The concept of momentum can be understood like pushing a heavy object. At first, the object resists. It requires effort, determination, and persistence just to get it moving. Many people give up at this stage because the results seem small, insignificant, or invisible. But once the object begins to move, each subsequent push becomes easier. Momentum reduces resistance and allows for greater speed and efficiency. Life operates in the same way. The initial steps toward a goal, no matter how small, create the motion that carries you forward. Over time, this motion compounds and progress accelerates in ways that can feel effortless compared to the initial struggle. Consistency is the key to building momentum. Momentum is not the result of sporadic bursts of effort. It is the outcome of repeated, reliable action. Doing something once or twice may provide a small boost, but real momentum requires ongoing commitment. Each day you show up, take action, and move toward your goal, you add to the energy that propels you. This accumulation is often invisible at first, but over time, it becomes undeniable. The power of momentum is that it transforms ordinary, repeated actions into extraordinary results because each action compounds on the previous one. Another critical aspect of momentum is that it reduces fear and doubt. When you take consistent action, hesitation diminishes because you have evidence that progress is possible. Fear feeds on uncertainty, waiting, and indecision, but momentum replaces these with forward motion and visible progress. The act of moving forward creates confidence, reinforces your capabilities, and teaches you that you are stronger and more resilient than your doubts suggest. Momentum is both a physical and psychological force. The more consistently you act, the less paralyzing fear becomes, and the more natural action feels. Momentum is also self-reinforcing. Each success, each step forward, no matter how small, increases motivation for the next action. The feeling of accomplishment, the clarity gained from experience, and the visible evidence of progress all contribute to sustaining momentum. This creates a cycle. Action leads to results. Results build confidence. Confidence drives more action, and more action produces greater results. The process is exponential. Those who understand and harness momentum rarely struggle to find motivation because the act of moving forward generates its own energy. It is important to recognize that momentum can also be lost if consistency is broken. Pauses, procrastination, or hesitation can dissipate the force you have built, requiring additional effort to regain it. This is why small, repeated actions are so important. They not only create momentum, but also maintain it. Even minimal consistent effort is better than sporadic bursts of high effort followed by inactivity. Momentum thrives on regularity, and the discipline to keep moving, even when results seem minimal, is what separates those who achieve extraordinary outcomes from those who do not. Momentum also changes the scale of what is possible. Initial actions may feel insignificant or unimportant, but as momentum grows, it allows you to tackle larger challenges and seize bigger opportunities. The energy created by consistency reduces resistance. opens doors that seemed closed, and accelerates progress in ways that a single action cannot. Over time, momentum transforms effort into influence, movement into mastery, and repeated steps into breakthrough achievements. Another key point is that momentum provides clarity and direction. When you are actively moving, you gain feedback, learn from experience, and refine your approach. Each step forward informs the next, creating a natural rhythm and flow that guides decisions, increases efficiency, and strengthens your focus. In this way, momentum not only accelerates progress, but also improves the quality of your actions, ensuring that each step is more effective than the last. Finally, momentum is empowering because it demonstrates the tangible results of consistent effort. When you witness your own progress, no matter how gradual, it reinforces the belief that you are capable of achieving your goals. Momentum amplifies both results and confidence, creating a cycle of growth, persistence, and achievement. It transforms the act of moving forward into a powerful force that makes each subsequent step easier, more natural, and more effective. Discomfort is an unavoidable part of life, yet most people spend their entire existence trying to avoid it. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek ease, security, and comfort. We are rewarded for playing it safe, following routines, and avoiding conflict. And while comfort feels safe and familiar, it is also the slowest path to growth, achievement, and personal transformation. The truth is that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the currency of growth. Every challenge you face, every moment that stretches you, and every situation that feels uncomfortable is an investment in the development of your skills, character, and potential. Growth does not occur in safe zones. It happens at the edges of your abilities, in moments when you are pushed beyond what feels familiar. Learning new skills, confronting fears, taking risks, or stepping into leadership all require discomfort. At first, these experiences may feel awkward, stressful, or even intimidating. Your mind resists because it equates discomfort with danger. But it is precisely in these moments that growth is happening. Discomfort is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are stretching, that you are challenging yourself, and that you are stepping closer to the person you have the potential to become. Every successful individual has learned to embrace discomfort because they understand its value. When a person pushes themselves beyond their comfort zone, they expand their capacity. They discover abilities they did not know existed, develop resilience, and build confidence. Discomfort teaches lessons that comfort never can. It forces problem solving, cultivates creativity, and strengthens mental and emotional endurance. The challenges that initially seem painful or inconvenient become the very foundation upon which personal and professional achievements are built. Those who avoid discomfort remain limited by their comfort zones, missing opportunities for growth that could change the trajectory of their lives. Discomfort also functions as a feedback mechanism. It tells you where progress is being made, where you are being challenged, and where real change is occurring. When you feel resistance, struggle, or unease, it is an indicator that you are on a path that matters. Growth is not always comfortable, and the most meaningful achievements are often preceded by moments of significant discomfort. Those who recognize this truth do not shy away from difficult tasks, challenging conversations, or new responsibilities. Instead, they see discomfort as evidence that they are moving in the right direction, as confirmation that their actions are meaningful and impactful. Learning to tolerate and even embrace discomfort requires practice. The first time you attempt something challenging, it may feel overwhelming or intimidating. Your instincts may resist, and your mind may conjure reasons to retreat. But repeated exposure to discomfort builds tolerance and resilience. Each time you act despite the unease, you prove to yourself that you are capable of handling challenges, adapting to new situations, and performing under pressure. Over time, discomfort loses its paralyzing power, and your ability to navigate uncertainty, adversity, and high-stakes situations grows exponentially. Another crucial aspect of discomfort is that it fosters clarity and focus. When you are comfortable, it is easy to drift through life, distracted by trivial concerns, routines, or comfort-seeking behaviors. Discomfort demands attention and engagement. It forces you to confront reality, assess your priorities, and make deliberate decisions. The moments that challenge you most require resourcefulness, planning, and strategy. In this way, discomfort becomes a teacher, sharpening your awareness, decision-making, and problem-solving skills. Discomfort also fuels ambition. People who resist challenges settle for mediocrity because they avoid the pain required to excel. But those who embrace discomfort are willing to pay the price for growth, knowing that the rewards on the other side far outweigh the temporary struggle. Every effort to step into discomfort compounds over time. The small acts of courage, persistence, and dedication accumulate, transforming skills, relationships, and opportunities in ways that a life of ease and avoidance never could. Finally, discomfort builds resilience and mental toughness. Life will inevitably present challenges, setbacks, and obstacles that cannot be avoided. By repeatedly engaging with discomfort in controlled ways, through learning, risk-taking, and personal development, you cultivate the ability to face unexpected challenges with composure and effectiveness. You learn that pain, struggle, and unease are not indicators of failure, but tools for building strength, wisdom, and capability. In this sense, discomfort is the currency you spend to earn the life you desire. Each difficult experience becomes a deposit in the account of your personal growth, compounding into confidence, skill, and achievement. Overthinking is one of the most subtle enemies of progress. It is quiet, invisible, and often disguised as careful planning or rational consideration. On the surface, thinking things through seems responsible and intelligent, but overthinking crosses the line into paralysis. It magnifies risks, creates doubts, and inflates minor obstacles into insurmountable barriers. The mind becomes a prison of what-ifs and endless scenarios, preventing forward movement. The truth is that action conquers overthinking. No matter how much you plan, analyze, or strategize, nothing replaces the momentum, clarity, and confidence gained from decisive action. Movement dissolves doubt and transforms uncertainty into experience, which overthinking can never do. When you overthink, you give power to fear. The longer you dwell on potential mistakes, failures, or consequences, the larger and more intimidating they appear. The mind amplifies what could go wrong while minimizing the possibilities for success. This creates hesitation, indecision, and ultimately inaction. But when you act, you break the cycle. Action forces reality into the equation. It reveals the truth of the situation, provides feedback, and produces results that are far more valuable than any amount of speculation. Every step taken, even imperfectly, generates information, momentum, and confidence, whereas overthinking generates nothing but doubt and anxiety. Action also transforms fear into courage. Fear thrives in the realm of imagination, where possibilities are often exaggerated and the worst-case scenario dominates thinking. but action brings you face to face with reality. It turns abstract worries into concrete experiences. The moment you move forward, despite uncertainty, you discover that most fears were inflated, imagined, or unnecessary. Each step taken diminishes the power of overthinking because you now have proof that you can handle challenges, adjust strategies, and move forward. Courage is built not in waiting for the perfect plan, but in acting despite incomplete information and uncertainty. Another powerful aspect of action is that it builds clarity. Overthinking clouds judgment because it focuses on what might happen rather than what is happening. It traps the mind in endless loops of speculation, often producing more confusion than insight. But when you act, you create real-world data. You see the effects of your decisions, learn from mistakes, and gain practical understanding. Action produces knowledge that thinking alone cannot provide. It sharpens intuition, hones decision-making, and empowers you to refine your strategy. In other words, action is the path to clarity, whereas overthinking is the road to indecision. Momentum is another advantage of action over overthinking. When you move forward, each small step compounds into greater speed, energy, and confidence. Momentum creates a sense of inevitability, a natural forward motion that makes future actions easier and more productive. Overthinking, on the other hand, is static. It creates the illusion of preparation while preventing progress. Without action, even the best ideas, strategies, or plans remain dormant, failing to produce results or generate growth. The power of action is that it transforms potential into reality, speculation into results, and ideas into achievements. Action also develops resilience. When you act, you experience challenges, setbacks, and mistakes firsthand. These experiences are invaluable because they teach you how to respond, adapt, and persevere. Overthinking never produces this kind of learning because it keeps you in theory rather than practice. The more you act, the more you build the emotional, mental, and practical resilience necessary to navigate future obstacles. This resilience reinforces confidence, reduces hesitation, and strengthens your ability to act decisively even under pressure or uncertainty. Procrastination and perfectionism are often rooted in overthinking. The desire to wait until conditions are perfect or until all variables are understood is a direct extension of excessive analysis. But perfection is a mirage, and waiting for it only delays progress. Action disrupts this cycle. It demonstrates that progress is built through doing, refining, and improving along the way. Even imperfect action creates results, lessons, and momentum. Every completed step, no matter how small, is far more productive than days, weeks, or months spent endlessly contemplating what might happen. Finally, action fosters self-trust and confidence. When you act, you prove to yourself that you are capable, resourceful, and resilient. Each success reinforces the belief that you can handle challenges, make decisions, and navigate uncertainty. This self-trust is essential for long-term growth because it allows you to move forward without being paralyzed by overthinking, doubt, or fear. In contrast, overthinking erodes confidence by emphasizing uncertainty, risks, and potential failure, creating a cycle of hesitation that undermines your ability to achieve meaningful goals. Action conquers overthinking because it transforms ideas into results, fear into courage, doubt into clarity, and potential into progress. It breaks the cycle of hesitation, builds momentum, and strengthens resilience, showing that movement, no matter how small, is always more powerful than endless contemplation. The comfort zone is one of the quietest but most powerful traps in life. It is a space where life feels safe, predictable, and easy. Within its boundaries, there is little risk, little challenge, and little discomfort. At first glance, the comfort zone may seem appealing. It provides security, routine, and familiarity. Yet it is also the enemy of progress, the invisible barrier that prevents growth, achievement, and the fulfillment of your true potential. The very qualities that make the comfort zone appealing, ease, familiarity, and low risk, are the same qualities that limit your ability to achieve anything extraordinary. Growth does not occur in safety, it occurs in challenge. When you remain in your comfort zone, you avoid the uncertainty and risk that are essential for development. Learning a new skill, building a business, pursuing a meaningful goal, or cultivating stronger relationships all require stepping into spaces that are unfamiliar and uncomfortable. The first step beyond the comfort zone often feels intimidating, uncertain, and risky. Your mind may resist, conjuring excuses, fears, or doubts to keep you in familiar territory. But this resistance is exactly the signal that you are approaching the edge of growth. The moment you choose to move forward despite hesitation, you take the first step toward progress. The comfort zone fosters stagnation because it discourages risk, experimentation, and bold action. People who stay within its boundaries may achieve small successes, but these victories are often incremental and predictable. They do not push the limits of what is possible. True progress, on the other hand, requires risk-taking, failure, and learning from experience. The discomfort that arises when you leave your comfort zone is not a sign to retreat. It is a signal that you are stretching, challenging yourself, and creating the conditions for significant growth. The more you embrace discomfort, the more capable you become of achieving results that once felt out of reach. Another critical point is that the comfort zone breeds complacency. It allows you to settle for mediocrity because it feels safe to avoid challenges. Waiting for conditions to be perfect, avoiding difficult conversations, or sticking to routines that feel comfortable may protect you from temporary discomfort, but they also protect you from progress. Complacency slows development, limits opportunities, and erodes motivation. Growth requires disruption. It requires moving into spaces where you are challenged, where you feel the strain of effort, and where success is not guaranteed. By stepping beyond your comfort zone, you confront complacency, awaken your ambition, and create the conditions for meaningful achievement. The comfort zone also prevents learning through failure, which is a necessary part of growth. When you take risks, you may stumble, make mistakes, or experience setbacks. Within the comfort zone, these experiences are rare because avoidance dominates. But failure is a teacher. It provides feedback, exposes weaknesses, and highlights areas that need improvement. Those who embrace discomfort and step beyond familiar boundaries learn faster, adapt more effectively, and develop resilience that becomes an asset for future challenges. In contrast, those who remain comfortable rarely encounter the situations that would accelerate their growth, leaving potential untapped and opportunities unrealized. Courage is the key to leaving the comfort zone. It is not an abstract trait. It is a skill built through repeated practice. Every time you act despite fear, uncertainty, or hesitation, you expand your boundaries. The first few steps outside your comfort zone may feel unnatural or intimidating, but each subsequent step becomes easier because you accumulate experience and confidence. Courage, like any skill, compounds over time. The more you stretch yourself, the stronger your resolve becomes, and the more capable you are of handling challenges that once felt impossible. Leaving the comfort zone also transforms mindset. When you are accustomed to taking risks, embracing uncertainty, and confronting challenges, you develop resilience, self-belief, and adaptability. You begin to see obstacles as opportunities, fear as a signal rather than a barrier, and challenges as a necessary part of progress. This mindset fuels long-term achievement because it shifts your focus from avoiding discomfort to seeking growth. Those who master this mindset consistently achieve results that others deem extraordinary because they refuse to allow comfort to dictate their limits. Finally, the comfort zone is the enemy of progress because it limits both vision and action. The longer you remain confined by familiarity, the narrower your perspective becomes. Opportunities are overlooked, risks are avoided, and potential is left unrealized. Stepping beyond comfort expands your possibilities, opens doors to new experiences, and accelerates personal and professional growth. Progress requires action, courage, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. The comfort zone may feel safe, but it is also the silent obstacle that prevents you from achieving the life you were capable of creating. Many people wait for the perfect moment to begin pursuing their goals. They imagine that they need more resources, more knowledge, more time, or a flawless plan before taking action. The truth is that there will never be a perfect moment, and waiting for one is a guarantee of inaction. The most successful people understand a simple but powerful principle: start small, start now. You do not need to wait until circumstances are ideal, nor do you need to have everything figured out. Progress begins with the first step, no matter how modest, and the sooner you take it, the sooner momentum begins to build. Starting small is not a limitation, it is a strategy. Many people underestimate the value of incremental action because it feels insignificant in the moment. They think that unless their efforts are grand, dramatic, or immediate, they are not meaningful. But the reality is that small actions compound over time. Each step you take, each decision you make, and each effort you put forth adds to your momentum and builds the foundation for greater achievements. Starting small allows you to begin without fear of failure, without the need for perfection, and without becoming overwhelmed by the scale of the goal. The first step may be minor, but it initiates a process that leads to growth, confidence, and progress. Starting now is equally important. Action is the antidote to fear, doubt, and procrastination. Many people delay because they hope for certainty, confidence, or convenience. But these things rarely arrive on their own. The act of starting immediately, even imperfectly, sends a powerful message to your mind and body: you are committed, you are capable, and you are willing to move forward despite uncertainty. Waiting diminishes confidence because it allows fear and hesitation to grow. Acting now, even in a small way, builds courage, reinforces belief, and begins the process of learning through experience. Every delay is a lost opportunity, but every action, no matter how small, is a gain toward your ultimate goal. Starting small and starting now also reduces overwhelm. Large goals often feel daunting because of their scale. A new business, a personal transformation, or a major project can feel too big to tackle all at once. By focusing on small, immediate steps, you break down the overwhelming into manageable actions. Each completed step provides a sense of accomplishment, reinforces confidence, and motivates you to continue. This incremental approach prevents paralysis, builds resilience, and ensures steady progress toward even the most ambitious objectives. Another critical benefit of starting small is that it encourages learning and adaptation. When you begin immediately, you gain experience, feedback, and insight that cannot be acquired through planning alone. Each small step teaches you what works, what doesn't, and how to adjust your approach. By starting now, you accelerate the learning process and reduce the time it takes to achieve meaningful results. Waiting for perfect conditions or complete knowledge delays this invaluable feedback, while taking action immediately provides real-world experience that refines your skills, strategies, and mindset. Starting small also cultivates discipline and habit. Consistent, incremental action creates momentum, and momentum is the engine of long-term achievement. By establishing the habit of taking small steps regularly, you develop a pattern of persistence, focus, and dedication that compounds over time. Small actions done consistently lead to big results, and the discipline built through these early steps carries you through challenges, setbacks, and periods of uncertainty. Starting now ensures that this habit begins immediately, laying the foundation for lasting success. The principle of starting small, starting now, also fosters courage. Many people hesitate because they feel unprepared, inadequate, or uncertain. By taking a small, immediate step, you prove to yourself that you can act despite these feelings. Each step taken builds confidence, reduces fear, and strengthens your willingness to take the next, slightly larger step. Courage grows through action, and starting small ensures that growth begins today rather than being postponed indefinitely. Finally, starting small and starting now allows you to harness the power of compounding. Just as financial investments grow exponentially over time, small, consistent actions multiply in impact. Each step builds on the last, each lesson compounds, and each experience enhances your capability. By starting immediately, you initiate a chain reaction that grows momentum, builds skill, and brings you closer to your goals faster than waiting for ideal conditions ever could. Starting small does not mean thinking small. It means taking the first step toward thinking and acting big. The moment you start, no matter how modestly, the journey begins, progress accelerates, and possibilities expand. Habits are the silent architects of your life. They shape your days, your decisions, your mindset, and ultimately, your results. The most successful people understand this principle intuitively. What you do consistently matters far more than what you do occasionally. Every action, repeated over time, compounds into patterns that either build your future or limit it. Your habits determine your trajectory, and by consciously choosing the right habits, you can steer your life toward achievement, fulfillment, and purpose. Conversely, neglecting your habits allows inertia, mediocrity, and chance to dictate the course of your life. Habits are powerful because they operate largely beneath conscious awareness. Much of what you do daily is governed by routines and patterns established long ago. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, your behavior is guided by these ingrained habits. This is why small, consistent actions matter so much. A single habit, repeated day after day, compounds over time to produce results far beyond what occasional effort could achieve. The trajectory of your life is not determined by random bursts of effort or occasional inspiration. It is determined by the steady accumulation of habits that either support growth or foster stagnation. The process of habit formation begins with awareness and choice. Many people are unaware of the habits that control them. They allow unconscious patterns of thought, speech, and behavior to guide their actions, often with little consideration of the consequences. This lack of awareness can result in wasted time, energy, and potential. But once you recognize that habits are the drivers of your results, you gain the power to shape them deliberately. By choosing habits that align with your goals, values, and vision, you take control of your trajectory. Small adjustments in your daily routines, when compounded over weeks, months, and years, can produce profound transformations. Habits influence both action and identity. Every habit you practice reinforces a belief about who you are and what you are capable of achieving. For example, someone who consistently reads, exercises, or plans their day cultivates a mindset of discipline, growth, and responsibility. Conversely, habits of procrastination, distraction, or avoidance reinforce doubt, weakness, and limitation. Over time, these patterns solidify into self-reinforcing cycles. The person who practices positive, growth-oriented habits begins to see themselves as capable, productive, and committed, which in turn drives further actions that support success. Habits shape not only what you do, but also who you become. Another critical aspect of habits is their compounding effect. Just as money grows exponentially through interest over time, the results of consistent habits multiply. Small, positive actions, repeated daily, may feel insignificant in the moment, but their long-term impact is enormous. Exercising for 20 minutes each day, reading a chapter of a book, writing goals, or saving a small portion of income may seem minor, yet over years, these habits produce substantial growth, knowledge, financial stability, and personal development. Conversely, neglecting these habits produces gradual erosion of potential, creating stagnation and missed opportunity. Your trajectory is the sum of these compounded choices. Habits also shape resilience and consistency. Life is full of challenges, distractions, and moments of discomfort. Strong habits create structure, discipline, and stability, allowing you to act effectively even when motivation fluctuates. When habits are firmly established, you rely less on fleeting emotions or external circumstances to guide behavior. You act because the pattern is ingrained. This consistency is critical because long-term success is rarely the result of one dramatic effort. It is the accumulation of small, consistent actions performed over time, guided by the habits you cultivate. It is important to recognize that habits are not always positive by default. Unconscious or careless routines can dictate poor decision-making, wasted time, or self-sabotage. Negative habits, such as excessive screen time, poor eating, procrastination, or neglecting personal growth, compound over time just as positively as good habits do, but in the opposite direction. Left unchecked, these habits steer your life away from your goals and limit the realization of your potential. Awareness and deliberate habit formation are therefore crucial. By replacing limiting habits with empowering ones, you shift the trajectory of your life in a purposeful and intentional direction. Finally, understanding that your habits determine your trajectory empowers action. You no longer rely on luck, talent, or external circumstances to dictate results. Instead, you focus on creating routines, behaviors, and mindsets that compound into success. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to reinforce a habit that moves you forward. By committing to consistent, growth-oriented habits, you design a life of purpose, achievement, and fulfillment. Your habits are the engine driving your trajectory, and the choices you make today, repeated daily, determine where you will be tomorrow, next year, and decades into the future. Your mindset is the lens through which you see the world, interpret experiences, and respond to challenges. It is the internal framework that shapes how you perceive opportunities, setbacks, and possibilities. While circumstances, resources, and talent play a role in your life, the reality you experience is largely determined by the mindset you cultivate. Those who achieve remarkable results do so not because life is easier for them, but because their mindset enables them to approach challenges with clarity, resilience, and determination. A positive, growth-oriented mindset transforms obstacles into opportunities and limitations into stepping stones, while a fixed or negative mindset magnifies difficulty, fosters doubt, and constrains potential. Mindset dictates how you respond to fear, uncertainty, and adversity. Life is filled with unpredictable events, challenges, and setbacks. Two people can face the same situation, yet respond in completely different ways. One sees failure as a reason to quit, while the other sees it as a lesson and a stepping stone. One sees criticism as an attack, while another sees feedback as guidance. This difference is rooted in mindset. When your mind is focused on growth, learning, and possibility, you are more likely to persevere, adapt, and take action despite fear or discomfort. Your thoughts shape your emotions shape your actions, and your actions shape the outcomes you achieve. A growth-oriented mindset allows you to see potential where others see obstacles. Challenges are inevitable, but mindset determines whether they become barriers or catalysts. When you approach life with curiosity, optimism, and confidence, even setbacks provide valuable insights. Mistakes are reframed as opportunities to improve, difficulties as invitations to develop resilience, and uncertainty as a space to innovate and experiment. Conversely, a limiting mindset focuses on problems, magnifies obstacles, and reinforces self-doubt. The same challenge that inspires creativity in one person paralyzes another, demonstrating the profound influence of mindset on reality. Your mindset also affects the opportunities you notice and the risks you are willing to take. People with expansive, positive mindsets are more likely to see possibilities that others overlook. They recognize connections, potential collaborations, and innovative solutions that remain invisible to those whose thinking is narrow or negative. Similarly, they are willing to act despite fear, uncertainty, or potential failure because they view challenges as manageable and risks as necessary steps toward growth. In this way, mindset not only shapes perception but also determines the actions you take. And actions, more than intentions, create reality. The stories you tell yourself are central to shaping your mindset. Self-talk, beliefs, and internal narratives guide your behavior and influence the decisions you make daily. When you reinforce empowering beliefs, such as, "I can learn from this," "I am capable," and "challenges are opportunities," you cultivate confidence and resilience. When your internal dialogue focuses on doubt, inadequacy, or fear, your reality aligns with these limitations. What you believe about yourself and your circumstances becomes self-fulfilling because it governs your actions, reactions, and interpretations of events. Changing your mindset changes the lens through which you experience life and ultimately the outcomes you produce. Mindset is also linked to emotional regulation. How you interpret experiences directly affects your emotions, which in turn influence your decisions and behavior. A constructive mindset allows you to remain calm under pressure, think clearly in challenging situations, and respond with intentionality rather than reaction. A negative or fixed mindset amplifies stress, frustration, and impulsive responses, often creating unnecessary setbacks. By shaping your mental perspective, you gain control over both your internal state and your external outcomes, demonstrating that reality is not simply what happens to you, but what you make of it. Another key point is that mindset drives persistence. Achieving meaningful goals requires sustained effort, consistency, and resilience in the face of obstacles. Those with strong, growth-oriented mindsets view temporary setbacks as learning experiences rather than signs of defeat. They remain committed, adapt strategies, and continue pursuing progress. Conversely, those with limiting mindsets often abandon efforts prematurely, interpreting obstacles as proof that success is unattainable. In this sense, mindset is the foundation of perseverance, which is often the single greatest predictor of long-term success. Finally, your mindset shapes your reality by influencing relationships, opportunities, and personal growth. People are drawn to optimism, confidence, and resilience, creating networks, collaborations, and opportunities for those with constructive mindsets. Likewise, a mindset focused on negativity, scarcity, or fear limits engagement, isolates potential, and constrains growth. By cultivating a mindset that embraces learning, courage, and possibility, you not only transform your perception of the world, but also shape the tangible circumstances of your life. What begins in the mind manifests in choices, actions, and ultimately, the reality you experience. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions we experience, and yet it is also one of the most fleeting. It rises quickly in response to uncertainty, risk, or the unknown, but it rarely lasts. Regret, on the other hand, lingers indefinitely. When we avoid action because of fear, we may feel temporary relief or safety in the moment, but that relief is short-lived. The consequences of inaction, the opportunities missed, and the what-ifs we carry with us often stay for years, decades, or even a lifetime. Understanding the difference between the temporary nature of fear and the lasting weight of regret is essential for achieving goals, pursuing dreams, and living a life without compromise. Fear is natural. It signals that you are stepping into new territory, confronting the unknown, or challenging yourself in ways that matter. While fear can be intense, it is designed to pass. The human mind responds to action, experience, and repetition by diminishing fear over time. The first step into something unfamiliar is often the hardest, but each subsequent step becomes easier because experience builds confidence and familiarity. Fear thrives in anticipation but diminishes in action. It is often worse in imagination than in reality. What seems terrifying before it happens often turns out to be manageable, teachable, or even enjoyable once you engage with it directly. Regret, in contrast, is enduring. When you allow fear to dictate your decisions, you create a void where opportunities should have been. Decisions not made, risks not taken, conversations not had, and goals not pursued accumulate into a persistent sense of, I should have, or if only I had. Regret is not just about lost outcomes, it is about lost potential. It is the quiet reminder of what could have been, a shadow that lingers because it is rooted in inaction. Unlike fear, which fades with experience, regret grows in your memory, haunting choices you deferred and ambitions you abandoned. It is permanent because once an opportunity is missed, the chance to reclaim the exact same moment is gone forever. One of the reasons fear dominates decision making is that it feels urgent in the moment. It triggers physical and emotional responses, racing heart, tense muscles, anxious thoughts that make it feel larger than life. In contrast, regret is gradual. It creeps in quietly, accumulating over time, often without immediate recognition. Most people respond instinctively to fear prioritizing short-term comfort over long-term gain, only to discover later that the consequences of avoidance were far heavier than the initial discomfort of action would have been. Acting despite fear is the antidote to the enduring weight of regret. Fear and regret also differ in their impact on opportunity. Fear constrains action temporarily, creating hesitation, doubt, and pause. Regret constrains potential permanently, narrowing the trajectory of life and diminishing fulfillment. When you act despite fear, you gain knowledge, momentum, and clarity regardless of the outcome. Even if the risk does not result in immediate success, the experience itself reduces future fear, builds confidence, and provides insight. Inaction, however, offers no growth, no learning, and no momentum. It allows regret to accumulate, and the longer fear dominates, the more opportunities are lost. The relationship between fear and regret is closely tied to decision making. Courage is the bridge that transforms fear into action. Each time you act despite fear, you reduce the likelihood of long-term regret because you seize opportunities rather than avoiding them. Courage does not eliminate fear, it simply allows you to act in its presence. By taking deliberate action, you interrupt the cycle of hesitation, doubt, and avoidance, replacing it with progress, experience, and the satisfaction of knowing that you tried. Regret arises not from failure, but from failure to act. Those who take bold steps, even if imperfect, experience the rewards of engagement and the lessons of effort, while those who defer action carry the burden of what could have been. Another critical point is that fear is universal, but regret is avoidable. Every person experiences fear when stepping into the unknown, facing challenges, or taking risks. Yet not everyone experiences deep regret because some choose to act regardless of fear. This distinction creates a separation between those who achieve their goals and those who remain limited by hesitation. Fear may feel dominant in the moment, but it is fleeting. Regret, rooted in avoidance, compounds over years, influencing decisions, mindset, and overall satisfaction in life. The temporary discomfort of fear is far easier to bear than the enduring weight of regret. Finally, living with the awareness that fear is temporary and regret is lasting transforms perspective. It encourages decisive action, boldness, and courage. It reminds you that the discomfort of stepping forward, taking risks, or embracing challenges is short-term, while the consequences of inaction are permanent. By confronting fear and choosing to act, you not only create opportunities and results, but also protect yourself from the lingering burden of regret, ensuring that your life is defined by courage, growth, and the pursuit of meaningful goals, rather than by hesitation, doubt, or missed chances. Commitment is one of the most powerful forces in human achievement. It is the energy that transforms ideas into action, dreams into reality, and intentions into results. Yet many people approach life with partial commitment. They start projects without finishing them, pursue goals half-heartedly, or invest sporadically in their personal and professional growth. This wavering approach produces inconsistent results, frustration, and stagnation. True progress, however, requires a different principle: commit fully or don't commit at all. Half-hearted efforts rarely yield extraordinary results, but full commitment creates momentum, focus, and the clarity necessary to overcome obstacles and achieve meaningful goals. Full commitment begins with clarity of purpose. You must know what you want and why it matters. Commitment is not blind enthusiasm. It is a conscious, deliberate decision to dedicate your energy, focus, and resources to achieving a specific outcome. When your purpose is clear, commitment becomes easier because it is rooted in intention rather than impulse. A clear goal acts as a compass, guiding decisions, prioritizing actions, and eliminating distractions. Without clarity, commitment is fragile, easily undermined by obstacles, doubt, or competing interests. Full commitment requires that you define your destination with precision and align your actions to that vision consistently. Committing fully also requires focus. Life presents countless opportunities, distractions, and obligations. Without focus, even well-intentioned efforts dissipate into mediocrity. Full commitment demands that you concentrate on what truly matters, avoid the allure of shortcuts or quick fixes, and dedicate sustained effort to the task at hand. Focus allows you to channel your energy efficiently, producing results faster and more effectively than scattered or inconsistent effort. The person who commits fully does not flinch when the path becomes challenging because their attention is fixed on the end goal rather than temporary discomfort, distractions, or minor setbacks. Another essential aspect of full commitment is perseverance. Commitment is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice. Challenges, setbacks, and failures are inevitable on the path to meaningful achievement. Those who achieve remarkable success are not immune to difficulties. They are distinguished by their willingness to continue despite them. When you commit fully, obstacles are no longer reasons to quit. They are signals to adjust strategy, apply effort, and keep moving forward. Partial commitment often leads to giving up at the first sign of resistance, but full commitment allows you to navigate challenges with resilience, learning from each experience while maintaining momentum toward your goal. Commitment also shapes mindset. The act of fully committing signals to your mind that this goal is non-negotiable. It reduces indecision, minimizes hesitation, and strengthens self-belief. A fully committed mindset treats failure as feedback rather than defeat, and views effort as an investment rather than a burden. This mental clarity and confidence create a positive feedback loop. The more fully you commit, the more motivated you become, and the more capable you are of executing the actions necessary to achieve your goal. In contrast, partial commitment fosters doubt, procrastination, and inconsistency, all of which slow progress and erode confidence over time. Full commitment requires action without delay. Those who commit fully understand that momentum is built through doing, not planning or overthinking. Decisions are made decisively, actions are taken consistently, and progress is measured through tangible results rather than intentions. Partial commitment often manifests as procrastination, endless preparation, or a reliance on perfect conditions. Full commitment eliminates excuses because it recognizes that action is the vehicle through which goals are realized. Every step taken reinforces commitment, while inaction erodes it, demonstrating the inseparable link between dedication and tangible progress. Commitment also transforms the relationship between risk and reward. Significant achievements rarely occur within the boundaries of comfort. Pursuing ambitious goals involves uncertainty, potential failure, and moments of discomfort. Those who commit fully embrace these risks, understanding that the potential for growth and achievement outweighs temporary discomfort. Partial commitment, on the other hand, is characterized by hesitation, half measures, and avoidance of risk, limiting both learning and opportunity. True results come from dedication, courage, and a willingness to endure challenges with unwavering focus. Finally, committing fully amplifies all other qualities necessary for success: discipline, courage, resilience, and focus. Commitment is the framework that organizes energy, guides decisions, and creates a consistent path forward. It turns good intentions into deliberate action, transforms fear into courage, and converts small efforts into significant results. Anything short of full commitment is an investment in mediocrity, while total dedication unlocks the potential for extraordinary achievement. To achieve meaningful goals, make a deliberate choice, commit fully with all your energy, focus, and determination, or acknowledge that half-hearted effort will never produce the outcomes you desire